Hi and welcome to the next session of our Automotive Aftermarket podcast. We are at Messe Frankfurt at Automechanica, live from the show floor. And our next guest is Alexander Brenner. Very interesting guest. He's working for BCG, that's the Boston Consulting Group. I'm sure many of our listeners know about Boston Consulting Group because they read a couple of reports and they gave you their precious email addresses to do so, and you might have contacted them already as well. But first, for our audience who don't know you, could you give us a little introduction about yourself and what you are doing at BCG?
Yes, thank you so much. So first of all, thanks for the invitation and being here. It's really impressive being here, the Automechanica in Frankfurt every 2 years, because there you can really feel how the evolution of the aftermarket is going on and how important it is, and that all of us who are working in the aftermarket are actually working in a super cool period of time, right? Couple of sentences to me. I'm Alex Brenner, German Chilean from background, so growing up across a couple of continents, which most probably helped me to understand working a little bit in between different industries. Because if we talk about the aftermarket, it's not really the new vehicles business. It's not entirely just the light asset service business, but it's always a little bit in between along the life cycle. And that is also my responsibility at BCG in our European region, including South America, because that part kind of belonged to Spain. I'm responsible for our business with suppliers and aftermarket players along the value chain, whether it's a parts wholesaler, whether it's a retailer, whether it's a workshop chain, whether it's a data provider.
So it's basically everything. You're not just focused on manufacturers. It's like trade, manufacturer, even down to the workshops.
As I said, how we define, the life cycle of a vehicle. So the easiest usually is to exclude, the production of new vehicles, but the entire rest in times of sustainability to literally keep the vehicle running, whether it's the service side, the component side. That is my responsibility, and it's exciting because in current times a lot of focus is coming back to the aftermarket.
No, totally agree. And I know that you are dealing with the aftermarket topic for quite some time now. How did that happen? How did you end up with this topic? Or where does your passion for the automotive aftermarket come from?
Yeah, it's I have to be honest, and I'm literally in this podcast telling it quite publicly. I was not born with gasoline in my veins, but actually with bits and bytes, right? So I've been working for now, way more than 2 decades, but originally started in IT. I was working in some suppliers in the IT division and then switched into consulting, originally focused on what is IT, digitalization, processes, etc. And as you can imagine, the largest buyers of IT and process consulting, etc., it's banks, it's insurances, and it's telecommunication companies. And then almost 2 decades ago, there was, for my employer back then, a very large project where they wanted, as a car manufacturer, to establish a car sharing business.
Okay.
And back then, the car manufacturer said, well, that is service, and we do not know service. We do not know terms of what is average return per user, target operating model, which people who work in service business, software business, they all do know it. And we had a 50-50 team, 50% automotive team, 50% telecommunications.
It's a complete different set of KPIs.
Exactly. I was the telecommunications guy and I just loved it. And since that case, I did not leave the automotive industry, but I stayed super close to not, let's say, the primary production of the vehicle, but servicing it.
Yeah.
And this is how I came in. It helped me a lot that in my family we have car mechanics. So I do also have an understanding of greasy hands and
getting
working.
Your hands dirty.
Exactly, which is how the business works, right?
Yeah.
But this is how I actually came into the industry, and I like to think that is a little bit why I have an additional perspective on top, because I started in IT, in telecommunication.
And for the companies you are working for as BGC, so what are you bringing to the table? So what are the things these companies are seeking from you?
Yes.
So how can you support them?
It literally depends a little bit.
Because for our viewers, it's not just the reports.
It's not just the reports.
They are not writing reports every day.
We are very proud of the reports, and when I went to college many years, if not decades ago, everybody learned of this famous 2x2 BCG matrix,
yes,
which still does exist. But exactly, we do not just do reports. No, we literally help our clients along the entire value chain, and they are just players and or situations where you are in a strategic phase and you elaborate on things like, how can I become much closer to my customer, for example. So you talk about the go-to-market. In some situations you have clients, players, whether it's suppliers, wholesalers, who want to go to another country, and you have to understand the culture, you have to understand the legal aspects, you have to understand how that actually works. However, and everybody knows it in the aftermarket, you also have the situation of M&A. Whether you're trying to sell something, whether you're trying to buy something. So there are different situations where we really can help different players, whether it's on the strategic side, whether it's on the performance side, whether also it's on the people side. And this is really the beauty at BCG, that this is like a 360% topic. Recently, we are really focusing two specific topics which we are trying to bring into the thinking everywhere where we do business. So in my case, suppliers and aftermarket. It's first of all the new technology, data, AI, Gen AI, to really bring this into the game to improve performance. And it's also climate and sustainability, which literally is the foundation of the aftermarket, because we keep cars and other vehicles running, right?
Yes. No, totally. And what would you say are currently the hot topics? So I read your latest report, of course, which is about fleet. I guess it's named like the Fleet Imperative.
Yes.
And it's looking into the future. So it's basically the rise of fleets. And would you agree? Because like for a couple of years now, many people or many actors in the aftermarket are talking about e-commerce, and e-commerce is this new big threat. And then many people are saying, but no, it's electrification, and electrification, this will be difficult for us. But then there is this fleet topic is cooking on very slow heat only in the market. But actually, when you have a good look at it, what this fleet business means, because fleet means the loss of ownership. So basically, it's not the driver anymore who is making the decision, which workshop am I going to. So this gets decided from the fleet owner. So it's like a change in the value chain.
There's indeed a lot of change, and depending on the viewpoint, unfortunately, in my case, I don't want to say fortunately, but let's say we are there to help navigate these different trends, which sometimes are contradicting, sometimes overlapping, sometimes strengthening. To give an example, in my humble opinion, we do have a strong correlation between what is happening along the trend of electrification, correlated strongly with what is the connected vehicle and what is fleet business. Why is that happening? Because with the new generations and architectures of electric vehicles being introduced into the markets, those vehicles are or have a very, very high share of software, obviously. So they are connected. The architecture is entirely different. So this is actually two things which almost come in parallel. How do now fleets come into the play? We now also have the situation that, given whether it's a true, whether it's a real, or whether it's a perceived risk, we have lots of players who say, hey, if it's an electric vehicle, we prefer to have it in some sort of leasing, sharing, etc.
Because of the resale value.
Resale. I mean, whether it's real or whether it's perceived, but the topics are mileage, resale value, whether it's what happens with a battery, do I understand it? Do I find the workshop? Do I find the spare parts, etc.? I want somebody larger, more professional, sometimes independent, sometimes the electric car manufacturer to handle it. So this is actually three trends which kind of come hand in hand: electric vehicles, fleets, and the connectivity. The interesting stuff now is that they also come independent, right? So obviously, leasing players are trying to grow and trying to push business. Just a few years ago, we had a very large merger of a French and a Dutch, let's say, leasing player. They do not only go into the direction of electric vehicles, they also go into the direction of combustion engine vehicles. And they do not only focus on new vehicles, but also used vehicles. So used car leasing is something which was introduced into the market already in, let's say, the combustion engine era a couple of years ago. And this is why we did say 1-2 years ago that there is an imperative that we have to look at the fleet business and we have to understand, we as the aftermarket, how to deal with it. Because the person taking the decision to fix a vehicle, to maintain a vehicle, in which workshop, which spare part, in which moment, at which price, at which discount, etc., that's a different buying segment as compared to do it for me, do it yourself, etc. So this is actually where we believe we are really good at helping to navigate and helping to take the good decisions.
And for the players in the aftermarket, or let's say for the workshops, how can they focus on this fleet business? Because many of them will say, like when you look at the big fleets, to be honest, a lot of them are exchanging the car even before the first service. So, and then an aftermarket player could say, okay, that's not interesting for me, because why should I deal with the fleet owners, because the car is gone before it's coming in the aftermarket anyway.
You know, the most interesting aspect, and in our fleet study, we did a lot of interviews with fleet players and with workshops and workshop chains. And one of the most impressive learnings was that fleet managers, even with lots of new vehicles, told us that the capillarity, meaning the number of authorized workshops, where you would traditionally believe that new vehicles tend to be brought into authorized original workshops, right? We were told by fleet players and important customers, whether it's passenger vehicles, whether it's trucks, light commercial, the capillarity, so the number of authorized workshops is just not enough. Because if you are a taxi driver, if you are a delivery driver, if you are somebody who needs your vehicle to drive and you're sitting somewhere in the decentralized countryside of Germany or Poland or Scandinavia or France, you don't want to bring your vehicle or have your vehicle picked up and be brought back to you within a week, but you need the service right now. Hence, important fleet players need a network which is larger than just the authorized one. Hence, they need you to be there. Are you adequate to serve that need by yourself? Or do you also have to become more professionalized? Maybe having a franchise label, whether it's hard or soft, but having the information, having the invoicing system, having the interface, etc. That is something where also the independent workshops can take a step back and tap into that fleet market, which is just one of many trends, right?
Yes, totally. So there is opportunity for independent workshops as well. And how is there a possibility that like larger fleets kind of disrupt the value chain? Are there fleet owners or fleet companies trying to go down the value chain? Like, for example, like focusing on a certain workshop chain, maybe doing their own contracts with parts suppliers, so which parts they are buying for the as replacement parts, something like that.
I believe so. Let's say the underlying factor is obviously cost pressure, as for every step in the value chain, right? And also fleet players have a certain cost pressure, and they always try to optimize their way to market or way to source when it comes to spare parts. Also when it comes to the sourcing of the vehicles. I mean, you know, the introduction of non-European brands into Europe was also very much fostered by large fleet players, right? Because let's say they were not entirely happy with the original vehicle prices. And it's a similar situation if we look into the market, that also the large fleet players also try to optimize, try to leverage a certain situation when it comes to spare parts sourcing, when it comes to workshops, etc. And we do have markets, smaller markets like in the Netherlands, where everybody is talking about that there are several or maybe one player in the market who has such a volume of steering business into a workshop that they indeed get some benefits of volume, if
that's
I
what I
can
mean.
quote
They're
it so.
having a lot of buying power then.
Yes.
And another hot or another evergreen topic, I would say, is like the connected car.
Yes.
So, and also our viewers know, because of my background, I was always passionate for the connected car topic. So are there any news? Are there any new developments? And would you say there are hints that we finally can set up some use cases which could work in the future? Because there's this big use case everyone is focusing on, which is the workshop booking. And I guess many people are focusing on it because it's easy to understand. But how do you see the potential of connected vehicles in the future, and what would be the time span you estimate?
Well, I mean, about that topic we could actually be speaking hours, right? And obviously there are different opinions to that topic, and also, which is totally fair, different interests, because different players are obviously having a different focus and try to push their own business models. But if you let me shed a little bit light on it from different angles, right? So first of all, I do believe that with the upcoming vehicle architectures, whether it's electric vehicles or whether it's combustion engines, those platforms are maybe not yet 100% software driven, but they are much more connected, much more, let's say, digital, with lots of more software, right? So everybody by now probably has at least an app on his or her smartphone with which you can see a certain status report, etc. So that is, let's say, I would not even say the beginning, but that is step by step becoming the mainstream. And I believe that is going to be more and more and growing, right? Second opinion from me on that topic. And we did, and you remember like 5 years ago, 10 years ago, a lot of people, vehicle manufacturers, etc., talking about, well, the importance of the screen in the vehicle. And I have to be honest, I do not remember whether everybody was speaking about the third screen or the fourth screen or the however screen, right? In my humble opinion, I'm so sorry, but it's not going to replace the smartphone of the people.
No, it's the smartphone.
And I will not use, I mean, it can be a beautiful car and it can be a beautiful car key. I'm so sorry, I will not use the car key to buy something. I have my smartphone, whichever brand it is. It has a display, it has information, it has a mapping software. Some of them famous, some of them not so famous. But this is super important. And this is, I believe, if I may bring this topic up, a couple of years ago, a lot of the car manufacturers have been trying to provide their own legacy software and screen towards the end customer. And now increasingly, you do see that the 2 or 3 large global software and smartphone ecosystems are very much present in the vehicles.
It is. And
so you can connect the smartphone.
I mean,
it's super
I would
convenient.
say this in-vehicle entertainment system and connectivity system, they've come a long way, and
it's
they
became
better over time. But as soon as I can speak for myself, I jump in my car and what I do is I connect my phone.
And sometimes you have a rental car and it doesn't matter because it's exaggerated, but your identity and your data, where you have to go, your contacts, it's all on the smartphone. So you bring it with you, it's in the vehicle, right? In your wife's or husband's car, in your significant other's car. So this is something which is super convenient, right? So this is a topic which I do see there. The other element is, however, if we talk about connectivity, I also do believe that connectivity and data is different depending on your starting point. And I believe you should first think about which data do you have
Yeah.
Where do you have legacy, valuable legacy data before you start dreaming of becoming this big cloud provider? What do I want to say? If you are a component manufacturer, you have all the beautiful data about the component, the behavior, the quality, the repair information, the longevity information, the supply chain information. Why don't you use that data perfectly before you dream about, oh, well, I have to buy, I don't know, the information, which radio channel is the wife of a certain car, you know? This is like, hey, there is so much data available. Why don't you first try to have your data to become information?
Yeah.
Which is the next step.
Before
and then
adding data from another source.
Exactly, or buying data, etc., without, pardon my language, right? Having no clue about how to connect it, right?
Yeah.
And the same goes, by the way, for the repair shops. The information about turnaround times, fixing times, how to get a better understanding of, I have this, Dialogannahme, the dialogue reception of the vehicles. How can I be more efficient and order parts so that maybe overnight is enough, etc., etc. So this is where we have so much data along the value chain, but everybody is ringing about what we traditionally call telematics, the radio channel, and how is the seat adjusted, etc. You can do it, but probably you have much more valuable data already today.
Would you say this relates to something you said at the beginning, because you mentioned that your background is technology and you came into the automotive aftermarket and you were dealing with these two sides, like the aftermarket people and the technology people. Would you say that increasingly over time the aftermarket has to turn more into being like a technology sector, and you need like different people and different mindsets for that to come up with like valuable use cases?
Yes and no. I'm never going to say different people, because there is amazing people.
So I'm not exchanging the people, like different backgrounds.
No. But let me quote Michael Söding from Schaeffler, right? And he always tells me, hey, Alex, the aftermarket is a miracle. Because all those great engineers who developed the vehicles and the components in the beginning, they did it to last forever. The pride of a German engineer.
Yes.
Hence, the fact that there is the aftermarket is a miracle.
Yeah.
Hence, we almost have miracle workers in the aftermarket, right? But the topic is, I'm completely against the traditional thinking that the aftermarket is, it's like after the market, the market, and all the sexy stuff, etc., is what happening around the new vehicles.
It already sounds like cut off from the actual market.
Exactly. This is the market, and then there's the after. It's like the afterlife. When you're dead.
Yeah, it is.
When you're dead, then the afterlife comes. Nobody knows about it. But
the grave diggers.
Exactly. There's the grave diggers. It gives a complete different meaning to unboxing, right? So there's the grave diggers and etc. No, but in the aftermarket, it's literally the people which are not only there for the customer in the first 15 minutes of signing a contract of buying a new car, but for the next 15 years. So they always thought about servicing. They always thought about life cycle. So the question is, why different people? Why don't you empower those people more, and then they can get you more value? Because to be honest, and you know it, and look out in the industry, in many of the large groups, who's owning the money? Who's earning the money? Who's making the profits? So it's thanks to to quote Michael, the miracle workers in the aftermarket.
It is.
This is really the amazing stuff. So the question is, if you would empower and finance those people more, could you generate more value in the aftermarket?
So basically giving them the freedom to explore additional business.
Freedom, autonomy, maybe more autonomy, because I do believe there is value in groups, in working together.
Totally.
But the autonomy and the empowerment and the financing, that is, I believe, something which can trigger the generation of lots of additional value, because they are close to customers, right? They are in the warehouses, they are at the workshops, they are with the end customers, because the aftermarket is the people, at the working bay.
Yeah, we're coming not after them, actually, we are the front line.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, one thing the car manufacturers do understand, they say, hey, sales is selling the first car, service is selling the second car.
Yes.
Well, you know what? It's not just the second, but it's the third, fourth, and fifth car also, right?
Totally. And talking about OEMs, it's also an ongoing discussion, like OEMs pushing into the aftermarket. And we have some of the big OEMs who have like a really thoughtful aftermarket strategy as well, like Stellantis, for example. So they're expanding also in the aftermarket. Do you see this becoming a threat for traditional players, or do you see this as a trend, a growing trend in the aftermarket?
So the question that you are asking is a super German question, and you also gave yourself the answer that you said, hey, Stellantis is doing it, is already doing it, right? And I would even say, hey, for American players, for French players,
it's completely normal.
It's completely normal by now. Some of them own distribution channels, own workshop networks, whether it's the American ones or the French ones, etc. And I believe in Germany...
But it's the German angst.
It's the German angst. Maybe it's also because in Germany, traditionally, the vehicles were on average more premium, and they had, again, either felt or factual a higher risk of cannibalization, that they were more shy about the two channels, and they did see it, hey, this is the dark side of the moon, right?
Yeah.
And I believe this is something which is changing and has to change, right? Because the end customer with a vehicle which is 8 years old, you are the second or third owner, you have a certain mileage, you have a certain wallet, right? You will go in a certain direction. So the question is, do you want to serve that customer or don't you want to serve it? And the question is then in the second phase, hey, how are you going to serve it, by yourself or with a partner, etc.? So we believe in coopetition. We do believe, yes, obviously there always will be competition, which is healthy on different levels of the value chain. But at the same time, we do believe that there will also be situations where you have to cooperate, right? And bringing, in the end, a better service and a better product at a better price to everybody out there, to every customer.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And as you said, it's a typical German question, because it's not that there doesn't need to be some fear, because it's already a reality, and we have to deal with the reality as it is.
Exactly. It's relatively German. I don't want to exclude, there's always some exceptions, and also in Germany there are some players, but in Germany there was a large car manufacturer who did own a workshop network many years ago, is not owning it anymore. They did own a rental car company many years ago. Now they have one again, right? So there's different points in time where sometimes you are too early in the process, and sometimes it's the right point in time. And I totally do recognize it's difficult, but this is why you have consultants.
Yes, totally. And you've been quite busy here at Automechanica, because I know you're just coming from a big sustainability talk. Actually, with friends of the show, Jan Bambas. Hello, Jan, if you hear us. Hope to see you again tonight. And sustainability, another very big topic in the market. And what's your take on the sustainability topic? How do you see the players aligning towards it and tackling it?
So sustainability is sustainability, circularity, etc. Right? It's a quite important topic, which, however, I believe could and should be more embraced by the aftermarket. Because again, if something is sustainable and is helping,
it's us.
It's us.
Could you believe it? We're actually a woke industry.
it's a woke industry, right? I mean, I do not know anybody who's throwing away the car. Well, the leasing contract is over.
Yeah.
Let's throw it out the window, right?
Yeah.
No, but
No, I agree.
you keep it running. You've refurbished it, you recycle it,
Yeah.
you fix it, etc. Right? So it's something which is very, very close to the heart. And you're absolutely right. Today we had a super interesting panel today where we had friends invited from Scheffler, Jan Bambas, Jorge Almeida from Conti Tires, and also Xavier Kaufmann from The Future is Neutral. And we discussed about the thing that it's kind of everybody always has to apologize for the fact, oh wow, we're sorry, but this is recycled. Or this is refurbished, as if this is like worse quality. It's like when I went to school.
A very interesting talk.
Do you have a white piece of paper or the grayish one? Yeah, it's recycled paper.
And I had like the same topic with Mima like 2 years ago, because and I think so from my perspective, like the whole remanufacturing topic, at least it feels to me that they are ahead in the US and they are very passionate about it. And we had this chat and they said, but we hate the name like remanufacture, like a recycle. We are not using the name recycle.
Exactly. If somebody thinks about recycling, it's like, hey, you're throwing away, your old soda, or you're throwing away some whatever, some plastics in the kitchen. It gets recycled and it's your new seat in the car. No, it's right. I mean, we know it. It's not about that. So the point is, maybe we have to teach more, educate more, evangelize more, and tell everybody that this is the right thing, the good thing, and even a high quality thing, right? The mileage is the same, the quality is the same, the touching, the feeling, it's all the same, and it's better, and you're doing a good thing, right? And this is, I believe, where we have to bring a different value into it, right? But not apologize for it.
Yeah.
And maybe we need a new name because, if somebody thinks in Germany about the grüne Punkt, recycling, hey, it's some plastic thrown away.
Germany,
I don't want it in my car.
We are like the world champions of recycling.
Yes.
So it should take off at some point.
Yeah, look at my car. Yeah. It was a Leberwurst. Yeah,
yes,
I don't know.
Yeah, whatever. But I guess wording plays a big role in that, because it's like more or less it's a problem of the mindset of people.
It plays a big role, right? And in the end, if we think about it, I mean, metal is metal. Plastics is chemistry, right?
Yeah.
Whether you source it from wherever, or let's say in a circular way, in my humble opinion, the latter is much, much better, right? I do believe that there is still some way to go, educating people, also educating players. There are some situations where I totally do agree that in order to invest, you need to add value. You need branding. You want to convert it into a USP. However, there are other situations where probably it's about cost structures, where it's about leverage, and maybe different players have to join forces and do something together along the value chain in different situations and different parts, and not only in the one industry but maybe across industries. And I believe this is something to be discussed. The good thing, if we look left and right, and given my heritage, since I'm coming originally decades ago from a different industry, there are other players who are doing it. I mean, there is a sportswear manufacturer says, hey, this is 100% coming from ocean plastics. And it's cool and it's hip and it's
in other
and whatever, right?
It is, and it's called upcycling, and people love it.
Upcycling. It's an amazing word. I have an upcycled Ferrari.
I would take an upcycled Ferrari. I would
take an upcycled, downcycled, and recycled Ferrari.
But looking into the future a bit, like in the next 5 to 10 years, because that's, I guess, many people expect from you consultancies. They download their report and they exchange their email address for a glimpse into the future. They always want to know, please, BCG, tell me what is going to happen. So, and we have you now here as a guest. So what do you think the aftermarket on a global scale is heading towards in the next 5 to 10 years? What will be the challenges and what will be the opportunities?
Yeah. So first of all, sometimes you have to give the email address and a mobile phone number. Then you get
both.
2 reports, 2 for 1. That is an amazing offer, by the way.
So the more information I need to put, so I know before, the more information I need to put in, the better the report.
The more information you give, the more data you get out, No, but kidding aside, I believe, and again, it's not an easy answer because I believe there are 3 different speeds if we look at Europe compared to Asia, compared to the US, where we all probably in this podcast do know that the structures in the 3 regions are quite different. And not even talking about Southeast Asia and Africa, etc., right? But what we do see, and there's lots of investments going also from European players into Asia, is it will be even more digital and digitalized. And this is quite exciting because there always the question is, what of those learnings, what of those business models can be replicated into other parts of the industry, right? If we do look at Europe, we have a couple of different trends. On the one hand side, we still do see, given the capillarity of also the geographies, etc., we do see a lot of stationary players being quite strong, which on the one hand side is necessary in order to cover all the geography. On the other hand side, we also do expect there to be, let's call it, some consolidation. Of course, it did happen a couple of years ago, then there was a break, and now it's probably coming back. If we look at the US, again, it's also a little bit different. We do not have that much wholesalers, it's more retailers, etc. The interesting thing is, again, if we compare Europe to the Americas, there are a couple of very strong e-commerce players, for example. Whether it's North America or whether it's South America, Brazil, for example. We just spoke about those guys, right? The other element is, for example, there's also different trends where in the US, for example, private label much stronger than in Europe, for example, right? So this is the interesting thing. Like BCG, where we have super strong teams in all different regions to actually leverage each other and try, hey, what are you doing? What are we doing? Where can we learn from each other? Where can we bring certain elements from one continent to another? Especially because the large players by now are mostly pan-continental, if not global players, right? So the future will be different. One element is super certain. The interesting question is whether, for example, looking at the vehicles, where's the platforms coming from, right? So if we do talk about the European solution, well, if you look into a certain vehicle in Europe, maybe now 10 years into the future thinking, well, where's the architecture coming from? Is it like originally the European architecture? Was it sub-licensed from the US? Was it sub-licensed from China? So it's probably becoming more complex, the future, right? But quite exciting. I still have a couple of decades to work in front of me. So I do believe there will still be some change, right? In the underlying foundations of how this industry works.
No, totally. And I guess we then can close again with Michael Söding. But what you just said, he would have said then, but it might be challenging, but the aftermarket likes a good challenge.
Exactly.
So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Christian,
being our guest. It was a pleasure talking to you. And is there anything our listeners can now do if they want to get new information, latest information from BCG? We put some links in the show notes. They can look into.
So depending when you air the podcast, actually quite close to this fleet study. We did a big study of the European aftermarket in 2021. It was called the European Aftermarket 2030. We just updated it, and it's going to be launched mid-end of September.
Okay.
It's going to be called the European Aftermarket 2035. Not so creative, but even better content. So we might link this.
Yes, we put it in the show notes, and you will get a lot of downloads and emails. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.